Okay, so what I tried to do here was to get as close to the authentic jerk chicken as I could, while at the same time working with the tools and ingredients that I had on hand, which for me was a Weber charcoal grill and your average North American grocery store. This is kind of hard because most grocery stores don't carry some of the most important ingredients you need for jerk chicken, such as pimento seeds and scotch bonnet peppers. But I think I found a way to make this work. This is a weekend sort of dish. You'll want to marinate the chicken the night before to let all of the flavors set in, and then grill it up and serve it to your guests the next day. Or eat it all yourself. I wouldn't blame you, it's that good. I think that what makes this so good is a combination of a deep marinade and the smoky flavors it gets when you grill it over charcoal. You can definitely slap these directly on the grate, but I got a new rotisserie add on for my grill, so that's what I used. I also made some mango salad. This chicken can be spicy, so the mango salad really helps cool things down. Okay, so I first got started with the marinade for the chicken. There are a ton of variations on jerk marinade. Some differ by region, some differ by taste, and some totally depend on what you have on hand. And my version of this recipe tends to fall into this camp. I used a combination of bottled jerk paste and fresh herbs. The jerk paste is great because it has all of the spices and heat to set the flavor base, and the fresh herbs really help freshen up the marinade. I started off by roughly chopping up 3 spring onions. A loose chop was fine, it's all going to go in the food processor. To this, I added about 8 cloves of garlic. I always use peeled garlic, it's an incredible time saver and it's usually quite affordable. I also added an inch of ginger. I left the skin on because for this dish, there's really no reason to take it off. With the strong flavors, you'll definitely not taste it. Then I added about 1 heaping teaspoon of jerk paste from Walkerswood. You can find this in the sauces section of most supermarkets. I gave this a quick pulse in my food processor and gave it a taste. This needed a bit of sweetness to balance things out, so I mixed in some sugar and I gave it another pulse to mix everything together. I gave this a taste again. It also needs a sour element. I grated the peel of 1 lemon and also added its juice. I gave it a pulse again, and now to taste. Yep, that's it. Now onto the chicken. When buying a bird, I always go for a chicken that's been air chilled. These chickens absorb less moisture, so you always get a crispier skin. I'm going to cut this chicken into quarters, and I first start to do this by spatchcocking the chicken. This means that we take the spine out and flatten the chicken. Once this was done, I cut the chicken into 2 halves to make it a bit easier to work with. I pulled back the skin and scored the chicken. This allowed the marinade to get really deep into the meat, almost to the bone. I made sure not to cut the skin because an intact piece of chicken with the skin on just looks better. Once this was done, I cut the halves into quarters and applied the marinade into the meat. I made sure to get the marinade under the skin and into the slits. A deep marinade is very important to make sure the flavor gets all the way through. Once this was done, I let the chicken marinate overnight. Okay, so while that sat, I got started with the salad. This chicken is pretty spicy, so some sweet mango salad really helps balance out the dish and can be made the night before. I started off by dicing 1 bell pepper. I find the best way to cut the bell peppers is to start by cutting a thin layer off the top and then off the bottom. Once you remove the seeds, you are left with a strip of roughly the same width that you can chop up however you want. I went with a rough dice. Next, I chopped up 1 cucumber. Nothing fancy here, just a coarse dice. I've got an English cucumber here. In the US, this variety typically comes in plastic because the skins are not waxed, which means it's good to eat without peeling. Then, onto the mango. I'm using a species of mango called atulfo. These are a local variety that are typically grown in Mexico. There are a ton of other species of mango that come in different flavors and shapes and sizes. If I had some more money to spend and they were in season, I'd love me some Alfonso mangoes. These are my favorite. The mangoes have a large seed in the middle, so you can only really use the 2 outside slices. I started off by lightly scoring the squares into halves without puncturing the skin. Once this was done, I scrape off the flesh from the skin with a spoon. If you want to be on the safe side, you can use a butter knife for this. It helps you from cutting through the mango skin and also your own. I then chop up about half a large red onion. Nothing fancy here, just a rough dice is fine. And lastly, I finely diced about half a bunch of cilantro. I usually keep this in the fridge as is and serve it with some lime and salt when I'm ready to eat. Okay, so after marinating overnight, the chicken was now ready to cook. I grilled the chicken rotisserie style, and I did this using an add on for my Weber Kettle barbecue. I first started off by getting my charcoals lit. I wanted the heat to be on either side of the meat with a cool zone down the middle. I've recently started using a blowtorch to light my charcoal. I got this on Amazon and it wasn't too expensive, but it gets the charcoal lit really fast, like I'm talking a couple of minutes. While the charcoal's heated up, I got started with the rotisserie setup. Because I quartered the chicken, I'll be using a rotisserie basket, but it also works really well if you just spatchcock the chicken. I tried to alternate between breast and leg when layering it up just to make sure things were spread out evenly. Once this was done, I give a generous sprinkling of salt to both sides and some oil to help with the browning. Once the coals were hot, I put the chicken on the rotisserie and covered it to let the convection forces do their thing. After about 30 minutes, I gave it a check. Things were coming along great. The chicken was getting some nice color, but it still needed to cook a bit more, about 30 or so more minutes. 30 minutes later, I checked up on the chicken again, and it was done, so off it went. Now you can put it on a plate with some mango salad, and I also made some Jamaican style rice and peas, and we're done. Let me know what recipe you want me to make next in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.